Most people think the biggest obstacle in their life is outside them. They blame the timing. They blame the pressure. They blame the people around them. They blame the economy, their past, their environment, or the circumstances that keep getting in the way. And sometimes those things do matter. But very often, the real obstacle is much closer than that. It is not around you. It is within you. Because the mountain is not always the world in front of you. Sometimes the mountain is you. That is the heart of today's story. Today's book is The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. This is not just a book about success or productivity. It is a book about self-sabotage, inner conflict, emotional healing, and the difficult but necessary process of becoming someone who no longer stands in their own way. Hey everyone, welcome back to Inspired Pages. On this channel, we explore books that help us understand life, human behavior, discipline, mindset, emotional strength, and the deeper forces shaping our everyday experiences. In our previous videos, we explored how habits shape daily behavior, how grit helps us keep going when life gets hard, how resistance blocks meaningful work, and how disciplined mornings can change the direction of a day. Today, we move into another powerful idea. Because sometimes the biggest battle is not with the world around us. Sometimes the battle is with the version of ourselves that keeps us stuck. Brianna Wiest's The Mountain Is You begins with a painful but liberating truth. Self-sabotage is not random. It is not proof that you are broken. It is not because you are weak, lazy, or incapable. In many cases, self-sabotage is a protective response. It is the mind's way of trying to keep you safe from pain, change, uncertainty, or emotional exposure. That may sound strange at first, but it matters. Because when you understand that self-sabotage often comes from protection, you stop seeing yourself only as the enemy and start seeing the deeper pattern that needs to be healed. This is one of the most important ideas in the book. People do not sabotage themselves because they want to fail. They sabotage themselves because on some level, failure feels familiar, and success feels dangerous. Growth requires change. Change requires discomfort. And discomfort can trigger fear. So the mind tries to pull you back toward the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. That is why some people repeatedly delay the things they say matter most. They know what they need to do. They know what they want. They even feel a strong desire for change. But when the moment comes to act, something inside them resists. They procrastinate. They overthink. They distract themselves. They get overwhelmed. They make excuses. And then they feel frustrated because they cannot understand why they keep doing the same thing. The Mountain Is You explains that this cycle is often connected to unmet emotional needs, hidden fear, and old patterns that were built to help you survive. At some point, those patterns may have been useful. Maybe they helped you avoid rejection. Maybe they helped you protect your heart. Maybe they helped you stay small in a situation where being visible felt unsafe. But what once protected you can later become the very thing that holds you back. This is why self-sabotage is so complex. It is not always dramatic. It can look very ordinary. It can look like delaying work, staying in the wrong situation too long, avoiding difficult conversations, choosing comfort over growth, or repeating the same emotional pattern again and again. On the surface, it looks like indecision. But underneath, it is often fear trying to stay in control. And this is where the book becomes deeply valuable. It does not just tell you to try harder. It invites you to understand yourself more honestly. It asks you to stop only blaming the behavior and start asking what the behavior is protecting. What fear is beneath it? What pain is it trying to avoid? What old belief is still running the show? Because once you can name the pattern, you can begin to change it. A major idea in the book is that your life expands when your self-awareness expands. Many people want a new life, but they do not want to face the internal habits that keep creating the old one. They want more confidence, but they keep feeding self-doubt. They want more peace, but they keep living in emotional chaos. They want more progress, but they keep returning to avoidance. And until that inner pattern is addressed, the outside results usually do not change for long. Wiest's message is not harsh. It is honest. She is not saying that change is easy. She is saying that change is possible when you stop pretending the problem is only outside of you. The mountain is you means that the challenge you keep facing may not be the world rejecting you. It may be your own inner resistance, fear, or unresolved pain standing between you and the life you want. That realization can be uncomfortable. But it is also empowering. Because if the mountain is you, then the path forward is also within you. The book also teaches that self-sabotage often comes from a lack of self-trust. When you do not trust yourself, your mind becomes divided. One part wants growth. Another part expects disappointment. One part dreams big. Another part prepares for failure. This inner split creates tension, and that tension often leads to avoidance. You hesitate because you do not fully believe you can hold the result, the responsibility, or the change that success might bring. This is why healing is not just emotional. It is practical. You begin to build self-trust by keeping promises to yourself. Small promises. Real promises. Meaningful promises. If you say you will wake up at a certain time, do it. If you say you will finish a task, finish it. If you say you will rest, rest without guilt. If you say you will not entertain a toxic pattern, hold that boundary. Self-trust grows through consistency, not through self-criticism. And that consistency matters because many people are exhausted by internal war. They are tired of starting over. Tired of breaking their own word. Tired of feeling like they are always behind. But the answer is not to hate yourself into change. The answer is to understand yourself enough to build a healthier relationship with discipline, responsibility, and emotional honesty. Another important lesson in the book is that pain often becomes hidden in behavior. When people are overwhelmed by unresolved emotion, they may not always recognize it directly. Instead, they may act it out. They may shut down. They may overwork. They may numb themselves with distractions. They may chase validation. They may avoid stillness because stillness would force them to feel what they have been pushing away. In this way, behavior becomes a language. It reveals what has not yet been spoken. That is why The Mountain is You encourages reflection. Not for the sake of overthinking, but for the sake of clarity. The more clearly you can see your patterns, the less power they have over you. You begin to notice what triggers you, what drains you, what you fear, what you avoid, and what you truly need. And from there, healing becomes less abstract. It becomes a process of understanding, choice, and repetition. Wiest also speaks powerfully about emotional maturity. Maturity is not pretending you do not feel pain. It is learning how to respond to pain without abandoning yourself. It is learning how to sit with discomfort without immediately escaping into destructive habits. It is learning how to tell the difference between a real warning and an old fear response. This is a serious skill. Because not every uncomfortable feeling means you should quit. And not every intense emotion means you should act immediately. Sometimes the most mature thing you can do is pause, reflect, and respond with intention. That kind of emotional maturity changes everything. It helps you stop reacting from old wounds and start living from a more grounded place. It helps you choose what is healthy over what is familiar. It helps you stop confusing intensity with truth. It helps you see that many emotional patterns are not destiny. They are habits. And habits can be changed. One of the most powerful themes in the book is that healing is not a one-time event. It is a practice. It is not about suddenly becoming a different person overnight. It is about repeatedly choosing honesty over denial, courage over avoidance, and responsibility over victimhood. This is what makes growth real. Not a single breakthrough, but the steady decision to keep going through the internal work. That work may include setting boundaries. That may include leaving what keeps you small. It may include forgiving yourself for the time you lost. It may include grieving the version of your life that did not happen. It may include finally admitting that what you called comfort was actually avoidance. Healing is not always soft. Sometimes it is clear. Sometimes it is uncomfortable. Sometimes it demands that you release identities, habits, and relationships that no longer support your growth. But every time you do that, you become freer. The book also reminds us that purpose matters. When you do not know what you are moving toward, it is easy to drift back into old patterns. But when you begin to understand what you are building, your energy becomes more focused. Purpose gives direction. Direction gives strength. Strength helps you keep moving when fear appears. And fear will appear. It appears before change. It appears before growth. It appears when you begin to do something that could reshape your life. That is normal. The goal is not to erase fear completely. The goal is to stop letting fear make all your decisions. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move with clarity even while fear is present. This is where the book becomes deeply encouraging. Because it does not ask you to become perfect. It asks you to become honest. It asks you to become aware. It asks you to stop mistaking self-protection for self-respect when the protection is actually keeping you from the life you want. And once you see that, you can begin to choose differently. As we step back and reflect on the mountain is you, one truth becomes clear. Many of the obstacles in life are not just external. Some of the hardest mountains are internal. They are made of fear, old wounds, false beliefs, avoidance, and patterns that have repeated for too long. But a mountain can be climbed. A pattern can be broken. A wound can be healed. A life can be rebuilt. Not instantly. Not effortlessly. But steadily. The process begins when you stop asking only, "Why is life so hard?" and start asking, What inside me is asking to be healed? That question changes everything. Because it moves you from blame to awareness. From confusion to clarity. From self-sabotage to self-responsibility. And self-responsibility is not punishment. It is power. If this message made you pause and reflect, if it helped you see that the greatest challenge is sometimes internal, then the change has already begun. You do not need to transform everything today. You only need to become honest about one pattern. One fear. One habit. One repeated behavior that has been quietly shaping your life. On Inspired Pages, we explore books that help us think clearly, live wisely, and grow into stronger versions of ourselves. If this message gave you value, subscribe to Inspired Pages. Share this video with someone who feels stuck, someone who keeps repeating the same pattern, or someone ready to stop standing in their own way. Because your future is not only built by what happens to you. It is built by what you choose to heal within you. This is Inspired Pages. Stay aware, stay brave, and keep climbing, one step at a time.